Welcome again to the crash course on energy by the Energy Club IIT Bombay. So now we'll be moving ahead into the topic of solar thermal energy. So let's begin with talking about heat dome. So there are two pie charts given below. So the first pie chart talks about the supply of heat from various sources. So as you can see, the gas supplies 47.7% of the heat demand which we have now. On We also have coal which supplies 37.9%. The oil also supplies us 6.2% of our needs or of our demands. So basically, as we see, a majority of the heat demand which we have now is supplied by non-conventional sources of energy. The second pie chart on the right shows the demand from various places. You know, the percentage of heat this is required, the percentage of heat demand that is there. So as we see, 43.5% comes from the industrial region, 38.3% comes from the residential areas. So basically, a lot of heat demand comes from these two places, and majorly it is because of a major factor, that is electricity. And then second, we also need water heating systems to run machineries and mechanical parts and industries, and also we need water heating systems for residential purposes as well. So to tackle these problems and to solve this problem of heat demand, what we can use is active solar heat energy. So let's explore about the same. So first, let's talk about solar water heating systems. So these systems can be classified in two ways. So basically, first on the basis of fluid loops, and the second on the basis of the fluid movement in the systems. So on the basis of the fluid loops, they can be divided into direct or open loop. So what happens in the system is that the water which is heated by the solar panels or the solar collectors mounted on the rooftop is directly fed into the water storage system and is directly used for the purpose. So the water which is heated is the same water which is used. Second, we have the indirect, the closed loop system, wherein the water which moves in the circuit of the heat collector or the solar collector is different, and the water which we use in the domestic purposes and in the machineries is different. So basically, it has two independent circuits which work independently, and thus it is also known as an indirect heating system or a closed heating system. So on the basis of fluid movement, the systems can be classified into passive systems and active systems. Talking about passive system, the collectors is located at an level which is below the storage tank. So what exactly happens in the system is that hot water will automatically rise up and the cool water will automatically descend. So the movement of the fluid happens without any mechanical support or without any pumps. Talking about active systems, the collectors are placed at a height which is higher than the storage tank, and thus the hot water comes down and the cold water has to be pumped up using an external pump or a motor. So external energy supply is required to run the system, and hence it is also known as active systems. Let's move on to explain each of the components in the system. So first we have the collector. So in a collector, basically we have an absorber plate which is there below. Over it we have a transparent cover. So the sun's heat enters the transparent cover and is absorbed and goes to the absorber plate. So the absorber plate absorbs certain amount of heat that we'll denote as Q collected. Certain amount of heat is lost by the convection flow of heat, so that loss we'll label as Q convention. Some heat is reflected by the absorber plate, some heat is reflected by the transparent cover, the glass cover which is at the top, so that can be denoted by Q reflection. Then we have certain heat which is obviously lost by radiation. So as you can see, the labeling of the parts. So the heat that is actually used, that is the heat collected, is given by the formula: the total heat provided by the sun, that is Q sun, minus the heat losses due to convection, minus the heat losses due to reflection, and the heat losses due to radiation. Talking about the efficiency of the collector we use, it depends on two factors, that is the heat loss that will happen and the efficiency, thermal efficiency of the conductor to absorb the heat and work properly. So basically, as we see a graph here, which shows the heat loss keeps decreasing as we increase the ambient temperature, but the efficiency of the conductor to work keeps on increasing as we increase the temperature. So we have to find an appropriate junction to judge or to find the ambient temperature for the solar collectors to work and to have maximum collector efficiency. Now let's talk about some different types of collector plates which we have. So the first type is uncovered type. So basically the sunlight strikes these plates directly, reducing a good fraction of this energy which is coming from the sun as reflection losses. Usually this is used only when the temperature varies really very small with respect to the ambient temperature, because this is really very cost effective. Talking about the second type, that is the covered solar plate the solar heat collectors. So these are basically transparent material is used to cover the plate, providing them extra insulation, thus preventing conventional losses of energy, the energy losses due to convection. But again, it has a lot of reflection losses due to the transparent cover as well. Then talking about the third type, which is a very special type known as the vacuum type. So in this, it reduces the losses due to convection and due to conduction, but it also reduces the losses due to radiation. And such systems are really very expensive, and it is used in places where we want to achieve really very high temperature, and the efficiency of the work we do should be really very high. So based on the structure and shape of the collector, it could be basically divided into two types. So first type is a flat plate collector. So as we see in the diagram, the flat plate collector has an inlet pipe. So the water or the fluid which is to be heated goes through this inlet pipe. It moves in loops of pipe which is there inside the collector, and it has an outlet connection where the water leaves. So this heating system is laid inside a glazing frame. It has an transparent glass cover on top of it, and it also has an absorber plate. So as we discussed in a box type solar cooker, the mechanism is really very simple. The heat rays get trapped inside, and the pipe systems are heated up, and the fluid inside is then heated up, and the fluid which enters leaves with an increased temperature from the outlet point. Talking about the second type, it is concentrating collector. So what exactly happens is there is no grid system of the pipes which lay. We have a single pipe around which a parabolic or a curved shape reflectors are placed, so that solar energy coming from various angles could hit the surface and could be reflected onto the pipe, and thus the fluid inside gets heated. This system is required and used when the working temperatures are really very high, and we need a really efficient system. So it's obvious that one collector wouldn't be always sufficient enough to provide the actual heat that we require. So the solar collectors could be assembled in a solar system arrays. So basically the arrays could be in two types. One, the modules could be in series, and another, the modules could be in parallel. So in series, what happens is that output temperature of one of the plates becomes the input temperature of the second. But in case of the parallel system, all the input temperatures are equal to all the output temperature. All the input temperatures are same, while the output temperature of all the plates are same. So here in the series module, the pressure gradient builds up. So there is no such pressure gradient which builds up in parallel systems of solar heating. Moving on, let's talk about the next component in the system, that is storage. So storage is really a very important factor of the system, because it decides the cost of the system, and it majorly decides the plan or the idea of the plant or the apparatus to be set up. So the energy, the solar heat energy, would be stored in various mediums, like in liquids, maybe solids, and also in phase change materials. So talking about liquids, in liquids, the heat is stored using fluids such as water, which have high specific heat capacity. So the specific capacity of the water is given by the formula V into rho into Cp into delta T, which again is the volume of V stands for the volume of the container which we are using, rho stands for the density of the liquid, Cp is the specific heat capacity of the liquid we use, and delta T is the temperature at which the liquid is and the difference between the temperature at which the liquid is and the surrounding temperatures. Also, the loss, the Q loss in this setup is given by U to A into delta T, where U is given by the thermal transmittance and A is given by the cross-sectional area, the outside cross-sectional area, and again delta T is the difference between the fluid at which the temperature at which the fluid is kept and the surrounding temperatures. U is given by a formula that is thermal conductivity divided by the thickness of the material. We'll again not go into the details of U, but its values varies from somewhere around 2 to 10 watts per Kelvin. Going further, energy can be stored in solids as well. So they could be stored in setups such as packed beds or walls. Talking about packed beds are generally used for storage of thermal energy from the solar air heaters. So a packed bed is a volume of porous media that is obtained by packing particles of selected material into a container, and the particles are tightly packed. As you can see the diagram which is given below, so it has a cold air outlet and a hot air opening which is at the top, and the cold air outlet is at bottom, and we have pebbles which is tightly packed inside. So what happens is as the cold air enters, it has to move vertically up against the gravity to through the pebbles and then come out of the hot air opening, and these pebbles inside are closely packed, so they absorb a lot of heat energy from the air or the fluid which is moving, thus trapping and storing a lot of heat energy in the process. Talking about the third way in which we can store energy, that is by using phase change materials. So phase change materials are mostly the molten salts. So in this, the energy is stored in the form of latent heat. So it is given by the formula Qs, the heat stored, is equal to M, that is the mass of the substance or the phase change material that we are using, into Cs, that is specific heat of the in solid state, into the temperature difference, plus lambda, that is the latent heat capacity, plus Cl, that is the specific heat in the liquid state, into the change in temperature. Again, it is shown by the curve. So if the total heat that is to be stored is Q, we use a phase change material at temperature T1. So we keep on providing heat, the temperature increases to T dash. Then at T dash, the phase changes and the heat is stored in the phase change material without a change in temperature. And then on further heating, it increases to temperature T2. And thus all the energy that is to be stored is stored in form of the change temperature and the change state. So basically, talking about the phase change materials, the properties which it should have is high latent heat. Then the phase change should be a reversible process, very important, because once we store the heat, we also need to use the heat back. And very common examples that are used, cobalt salts, molten salts which are used for this are sodium sulfate, calcium chloride, and magnesium chloride. So moving further, talking about the next component, we have the boiler. So boiler is nothing but just a normal heater which is used to add some amount of extra heat to the storage tank to make it reach a particular temperature if the heat provided by the collector systems were not sufficient enough. Talking about the next component, again we have a very important component, that is the collector circuit. So the collector circuit provides a pathway or the route to complete the circuit and helps the fluid to move throughout the circuit. So helps the heat to move throughout the circuit. And so basically in the collector circuits, generally high specific heat capacity or high heat radiating capacity fluids are used, like water, oil, or air. So as it shows, generally liquids or gases are used, as I mentioned. The fluid should have high specific heat capacity and low viscosity. Again, low viscosity because the movement should be continuous and really very easy, and high specific heat capacity so that it has a high heat retaining capacity. Then the third point states that it should not freeze in working temperatures. That is really very important. It could stop the flow of the heat in the circuits. And a really very important point again is that it should be non-toxic, true, cheap, and abundant as well. So on this we'll be ending the part 2 of this module. So in moving ahead in part 3 we'll be discussing about very interesting aspects and very interesting uses of the active solar heating systems. So stay tuned for the same. Thank you.